Today's forum is part of our series, The Education Equation, Straight A Innovation Fund. It's presented by Columbus State Community College and represented by David Harrison. Dr. David Harrison, if you don't mind just raising your hand. And Columbus State Community College Foundation, represented by Pam Bishop, who is also in the room. Thank you. We also enjoy support today from the Columbus Partnership, represented by Alex Fisher and his associates. So please join me in thanking Columbus State Foundation, the Columbus Partnership, and welcome David Harrison, President of the Columbus State Community College, to the podium to introduce our program. Thank you.
Thank you, Todd. Good afternoon, everybody. Columbus State's pleased to support the Columbus Metropolitan Club and its mission of bringing important speakers and topics to the attention of our community. As Todd mentioned, this is part of the Education Equation series, and Jane was telling me that this is actually the 5th installment of a 4-part series. So you can make your own jokes about the education equation. But we're pleased to talk today about the Ohio Straight A Innovation Fund. Ohio's K-12 leaders enthusiastically responded to the first round of the Straight A Fund, with 420 organizations submitting 570 applications. Ultimately, $250 million in grants will be awarded to projects that solve specific problems in our schools, can be quickly duplicated by others, and are sustainable. $250 million is a lot of money, and that's not happening in most states. I'm pleased that Columbus State is the higher education partner in 2 of the state's top 4 grants statewide, and our work is working with districts to implement our Pathways to Prosperity initiative, which is creating a framework for grades 9 to 14 career pathways leading to an associate's degree, but also high-skill sustainable careers. To provide more specific details on the award winners today, we're joined by Jim Mahoney, President of Battelle For Kids, representing the Ohio Appalachian Collaborative, Diane Mankins, Superintendent of Marysville Schools, and David Quattrochi, Superintendent of Carrollton Schools. I'm sorry, David.
You got it right.
Yeah. But first, to start us off with an overview of the Straight A Innovation Fund and the critical need for innovation in our schools, it's my privilege to introduce Dr. Richard Ross, Superintendent of the Ohio Department of Education. Dick has been a champion for innovation and creative problem solving in education throughout his career. At the local level, he's been a teacher, a principal, and a superintendent. He's also been a university instructor. He has the ability to motivate educators so that they are as committed to education as he is, and that's best demonstrated in his 2 decades of service at Reynoldsburg City Schools. During his tenure at Reynoldsburg, academic achievement improved significantly. He left the district on an upward trajectory that has continued under successive leadership. Before being appointed last March as Superintendent of Public Instruction by the State Board of Education, Dick had been leading Governor Kasich's Office of 21st Century Education. In that role, he revised the evaluation systems for teachers and principals, and also instituted the A through F local report card grading system. Dick is dedicated to the mission of improving our state's educational system and thereby improving the lives of our students and their families. Most importantly, Dick cares about kids, and I can tell you firsthand that that's really what drives him. Please join me in welcoming our panelists and Superintendent Dick Ross.
Good afternoon. David, that was a wonderful introduction, and I appreciate that. It was nice of David to do that after he just hired my legislative director this week. She's going to do a great job for you. She's wonderful. Yeah. Again, I want to thank everyone for inviting me here today to be with you. I've spoken to the Columbus Metropolitan Club before, and it's kind of hard for me to believe you actually invited me back, but it's great to be back here with you, and I appreciate the opportunity to do that. Some of you have heard me, and I have a lot of acquaintance, friends, and partners here that know me well. Those who know me know I grew up in a little town called Farmer, Ohio. And it's in a rural school district, very rural, very isolated. But my own beliefs about students and education grew from my family. They grew from my upbringing, and a teacher that to change the course of my life by simply believing in me. So as we go on, I want to paint a little picture for you. I want you to picture a room, a lot smaller room than we're in right now, but full of desks, organized, usually rectangular, organized in rows. And I want you to paint a picture of a teacher at the front of the room, standing at a board. And I'm really going to go out there and I'm going to say it's probably going to be a whiteboard. That might be stretching it. But I want you to think about those students. Sitting at their feet are their backpacks. Those backpacks weigh about the same as some of the featherweight fighters I used to go with in Youngstown at the home club when I used to fight Golden Gloves. But packed away in those backpacks, out of teacher sights, are likely cell phones, iPads, to communicate with the world. But on their desk are books, notebooks, pencils, and highlighters. Other than a few tiny details, the whiteboard and maybe some technology, I could have been describing my high school, your high school, or a high school I visited last month. The way we learned, it worked for us. It prepared us for the world that we faced, a world where we did research in libraries, digging through shelves of dusty books. It prepared us for a world where we took notes by hand, sent correspondence by U.S. Postal, and we could only communicate with each other if we could find a phone that would be attached to a wall. My friends, the world has changed. And I can't recall the last time I even saw a set of encyclopedias. Even I, as untechnologically oriented as I am, use Google to find information. I'm an old guy and it's easy for me, and that's the world we live in. But we have too many boys and girls who are not receiving the early learning skills that they need to be successful, throughout their school careers. But a passion of mine, and it's becoming more evident as I look at data, we have way too many dropouts. 24,000 students in this state dropped out of high school last year. Those boys and girls who give up and drift out into the world lacking the education they need to support themselves and raise a family. They just aren't going to have it. These youngsters aren't as fortunate as you and I have been. Many of their futures could have been bright, but they fell victim to local education systems that didn't recognize their unique gifts, that didn't expect them to do great things, and then moved them along without the skills they needed to be successful. And do you know what happens to students like that? I do. They disappear. It's not dramatic, there's no fanfare. They just fade from the front row to the back row, from good attendance to bad attendance, until one day they're gone. 24,000 of them disappeared from Ohio schools last year. But that's not only bad for them, it bodes poorly for Ohio schools and Ohio's future. If you were here last week, you probably heard when Bill Lafayette spoke, heard him say that if we're going to restore a strong economies and strengthen our state's overall economy, one thing we need for Ohio educators to do a better job of is connecting school curriculum to jobs, good jobs. We have to make sure our boys and girls leave our K-12 system with the knowledge and skills they need to succeed in college and careers. Those jobs and career fields will be dominated by ever-changing technology and increased demand for skills such as strong critical thinking skills, confident problem solving, and capable communication and bold leadership. You all know this. You've heard it 1,000 times before, but our schools are too old school, ironically, to use that term, to meet our students' needs. And to be truthful, change is hard. And sometimes change is expensive. And change, unfortunately and sadly, is sometimes very unpopular. At the Ohio Department of Education, we're listening to Ohio's economic experts, the business leaders, and higher education leaders. We agree with most everything they're saying. To accomplish the kind of skills and technology savvy that our students need and they need to have the students have from the first day on the job, we must have more innovation in our schools. We must. We must have more intentional and creative ways in the way we teach our youngsters. And as a state superintendent, I'm committed to leading the push for schools to operate this way. I'm also trying to build an awareness that our educational system has entered an age of higher expectations that will be leading directly to careers and jobs. But I'm here to talk about Ohio's Straight A Fund. And Ohio, with the creation of the governor and his impetus and the support of the legislature, put a $250 million on the table to help our schools and district leaders manage and meet the challenges of this change. Governor Kasich's idea to create this fund came from his desire to give schools the incentive and the means to be more innovative so that they could do a better job of preparing our students for these jobs, especially in a fast-changing technology. But here's the good news. There are many educators all over the state that have great ideas for innovative ways to increase student learning. And our first round, as was said by David, overwhelmed us, exceeded our expectations with over 570 applications seeking more than $868 million. Obviously, we couldn't fund them all. And the Straight A Fund has to capitalize and focus on the very best of those ideas in the hope that those successes can be replicated across the state. But I'd be remiss if I didn't take a minute and thank some folks who really made this possible, because all I do is talk about it. And I want to acknowledge our Straight A Board Chairman, Alex Fisher. Alex. And I also want to acknowledge our person at the Department of Ed who I placed in charge of the Straight A Fund, who I'm very proud to have come back, former State Superintendent Susan Zellman. She has just done a wonderful job leading this program and should be acknowledged for that effort and that continuation as we move forward to the evaluation phase, Susan. As David just said, we just finished distributing the first $100 million of the $200 million fund. It went to 24 grant applicants that represented about 150 school districts and educational partners. But to receive a grant, they had to be innovative, they had to meet the learning needs of the students, and they had to personalize that learning, and they had to improve the student achievement relationship to college and career and job preparedness. But the last component was the one that was hardest for our schools, and it was something called sustainability. As a superintendent for 27 years, you always had grants that came, and you applied for the grant, you got the grant, you spent 2 or 3 years spending the grant, and even if it worked, when the money ran out, say, oh darn. In this proposal, with the help of Susan and other folks, we created a concept that you have to up front show how you're going to sustain this grant proposal. It's sustainable. 40% of our proposals did not even meet that criteria. 40%. So 4 out of every 10 applications did not even get read for the purpose because they were not sustainable after the original allocation. So today I'm here and I'm really happy that we're going to have 3 panelists that are going to talk about their proposals because I think you need to hear the process they went through, what they're trying to accomplish, but more importantly, how it's sustainable and how it's transferable across the state, or others can learn from it. I'd like to give each of our guests 2 minutes to give a brief overview of the project, including the name and the goals. when we get done with that, I'll have a couple questions for you, and then we'll do that, and I'll take some questions from the field. Out here, you can think up of some ones you might have. But I'm going to start with David, if you'd come up, David. And David is one of the most energetic, enthusiastic people I've ever met, and it's so empowering to me because a lot of folks in education just aren't that way, and I just appreciate it. Come on up, David.
Thank you. First of all, it's an honor to be here, and thank you, Dr. Ross, for inviting me. I have to say, I'm only as good as the team that I work with, and I have an outstanding team, from the board members all the way down to our staff. So I'd be remiss if I forgot Mr. Robinson, Director of Programs, who has really been spearheading this initiative. How it started? Well, this is our second year at Carrollton, and if you know anything about Carroll County, it's the epicenter of the Utica oil and gas. And it's just jammed, traffic, trucks, oil trucks. So, you know, we carpool a lot. And we said, we have to do something for that really coincides with what's going on in this economy, because there's such a transformation happening in Carroll County. So basically, our project or our grant's called POWER, Providing Opportunities with Extraordinary Results. And basically, just a quick overview of what that means and what that is basically we're going to partner with different energy industry to create this energy resource dynamics program, finding new pathways for students. You know, we have 35% of our graduating seniors who do not attend a 2- or 4-year institution. So part of this initiative is to capture those students who want to go right into the workforce and be able to have the appropriate certificate or certification to work in the oil and gas field. Secondly, is to make sure our higher level students are being challenged with more rigorous classes at the high school level. In addition to post-secondary classes, dual enrollment, and where Eastern Gateway has come in, and we're working together. Secondly, we're creating a project STEM education. We're going K-12 project lead the way. We're going to be one of the first districts in Ohio to pilot at the earlier elementary students with STEM. We're going to have a STEM School of Engineering, of Agriculture, and of Safety. And as Dr. Ross alluded to with the sustainability part, we're really focusing on CNG, compressed natural gas. We're going to convert some of our newer buses to CNG and purchase new buses that are already, come with that are CNG. In addition to having our own fueling station. And the goal with the fueling station is not just for our buses, which, yes, it is, but to also reach out to the community. And we've had a great interest from community, from other entities, organizations throughout Carroll County and beyond that want to take advantage of that. There are a lot of vehicles, a lot of small fleets and large fleets running on CNG. That's just a basic overview of our program. We're going to have a learning lab, about a 3,500 square foot learning lab, state of the art. We're going to have kiosks, a tunnel, a greenhouse. I mean, I could just go on, but really, and I can't go on because this is like amazing. So to wrap it up and to be courteous here, respectful, we have a lot of work ahead of us, but we're excited to get moving on this. So thank you.
David is absolutely great. Good job, David.
Thanks.
Diane, let's go right to you with your description of your project and what you plan to do with it and accomplish with it.
Okay, before I start, I think it's important to do the same thing David did. Certainly what you're going to hear today is a collection of a lot of work by a lot of people, teachers, community members, parents, students. We didn't have a lot of time, but we tried to engage as many people in the process and what you're going to hear today. So to give you a quick background, this time last year, I had been in the seat for about 6 months as superintendent of Marysville. and we had failed a levy in November, and we were left with the unfortunate decision to have to reduce $2.4 million from our budget. It was the first time ever Marysville had seen reductions in force and staff, and it was a very difficult and gloomy time in Marysville. About, I guess, this time last year, we had the opportunity to hear about the Straight A Fund, and it had been a rough time. I brought it back to our leadership team and had some in-depth conversations about this is our opportunity for hope. And really that's what it's turned into for us. It's hope for our kids, hope for our community, hope for our school system. We met, we took parents, we took students, we took staff members, a lot of community leaders to other districts, and learned what they were doing and doing well, and then brought that back and said, okay, what makes sense for Marysville? What's a fit for us, and who do we want to tap into, and what can we tap into? So we were lucky enough to receive $12.4 million to design Union County Innovation Center in Marysville Early College High School. That's a lot in there all at once, and I'll explain why the title is so lengthy. Our partners are Columbus State Community College. We're going to work to design a curriculum in which students could graduate from high school with their associate's degree as well as their high school diploma. Honda of America is a key partner, as well as Union County Chamber of Commerce, EdWorks, and our Career Center is actually jumped on board and highly embedded into what we are producing. The other tension in Marysville is we had 2 vacant buildings. So the opportunity, obviously, the opportunity now is to take that building and kind of funnel all the resources and renovation into one of those empty buildings and build our early college model with a focus on STEM and problem-based learning, and capstone projects are embedded into that. The high school is going to have 3 specific pathways with Honda as a partner. Obviously, manufacturing is one of those pathways. We'll have a robotics lab, welding lab, CAD, CNC, PLC. I've learned more about that strand of life than I even imagined existed. Students will graduate with stackable certificates. They will also have the opportunity to graduate with different degrees, associate's degrees through Columbus State with that. As well, we are developing an IT pathway that encompasses everything from maintenance, networking, coding, to multimedia. And the third pathway is health science, and we haven't developed that one, but that's the work we're working on currently. We did a lot of work around Union County. 50% of our workforce is going to be retiring in the manufacturing area. We know a significant portion of that is with Honda. So we are working on agreements in which our students could leave high school and step into positions with 0 training required and earn $70,000 to $80,000 a year. We will have our training center will be reproduce exactly what's in the Honda Adult Training Center. We'll also be opening that facility to our entire community. So as adults hope to gain employment, they will be able to train at our school before they would step into the workforce with Honda. That's a quick and dirty version. There's much more in there, but
I know there is, Diane, and I'm looking forward to seeing this enveloped with you, and because it's really exciting. Diane Mankins from Marysville. And we're going to finish with Jim Mahoney, who's involved with several. I don't know which one you're going to talk about, Jim, but Appalachian Collaborative, I suspect.
I am.
But Jim Mahoney from Battelle For Kids.
Okay. I want to start very quickly with 2 quotes. The first quote is, "The grass isn't greener on the other side, it's greener where you water it." And if you,
Marysville.
and Marysville, we'll amend that. But if you water innovation and effort and collaboration, then you get ideas, results, and camaraderie. And I really want to thank Superintendent Ross, Dr. Zellman, the governor for this idea, because it did flesh out lots of ideas. But particularly, I want to thank the 27 superintendents who I represent today on behalf of 48,000 kids whom they serve, making it the largest school district in Ohio, and Brad Mitchell, who's been the essential glue in putting this all together. as you can well imagine, when you put this many together, it is a consolidation of effort, not governance, effort, ideas, in doing a very, very heavy lift in which we've outlined new pathways for students that are much more relevant, taught by teachers, with much more effective delivery systems, and connected to the local regional economy, so we're preparing them for something. And the other story I just quickly want to, I was superintendent of in Muskingum County for 15 years, and 10 of those was at East Muskingum. And those of you who know that, it's New Concord, home to Senator John Glenn, and they renamed the high school in his honor in 1962. And when Senator Glenn went back up into space, I was county superintendent, and the local superintendent, Barb Hansen, did something for the 2,200 kids there that I thought was wonderful. It really represents the aspiration for what we have for these 27 districts, 50% poverty rate in southern and eastern Ohio. She gave each student in the system a poster, and the poster had a picture of the shuttle superimposed behind John Glenn High School, and then a quote from Senator Glenn. If you get your start here, you can go anywhere. That is absolutely the aspiration we have for this. School is becoming less and less of a place and more about what is taking place. So from a student's perspective, you're going to have pathways beginning in the 6th grade that could include business and entrepreneurship, health and human services, arts and communications, STEM. We're going to build an infrastructure of technology that will allow kids in small rural districts who didn't have access to a number of things, and the dual credit. So when they graduate, they can go anywhere, including a job that would connect with local prosperity, to a community college, to a four-year institute, because there are simply not enough opportunities, and we're going to make this. So the last one I'd say, somebody once said that everything is impossible until somebody does it. So that's what we hope.
Jim Mahoney. I'm going to pose a couple questions to the panel now, and then about 1 o'clock we'll open it up to questions from the audience. But, you know, I know that our districts out there have a lot of challenges on many fronts and many issues, and all across the board. But I guess I'm interested in each of you talking to me, why is this the one problem you chose to put more district resources and focus into with the help of the Straight A Fund? Why this over others? If we could, David, why don't we start with you, if I may?
We value the farming community, and we're in a very rural area that there are a lot of full-time farmers, and so agriculture plays a huge role. But there's just more about to agriculture than farming. You know, we get into structural engineering, we get into land labs, we get into other areas that will that branch out. It really fits under that whole concept of creating a 21st century farm that has a learning lab. You know, we looked and studied the culture of the district, and we really wanted to not change what the most valuable commodity is in Carroll County, but we wanted to enhance it, to make it better. And this grant has given us that opportunity to move faster than slower. We were going to do it anyways at some point, but it was going to take a lot longer without the financial support. So, you know, we have students that we want to capture all the students. We want them to be successful when they leave the high school, whether they go into the workforce and ready, as you were talking about, Diane was talking about certificated programs, post-secondary options, all the way to making sure our kids who want to go into the STEM field and expose them to what STEM is, the science, technology, you know, engineering, mathematics, what that is, and start thinking about their careers instead of waiting. So we're trying to provide many opportunities, and lastly, I would have to say is my whole vision behind this is I want Carroll County students to stay in Carroll County if they desire. And if, what that means is we have businesses coming in, and there's going to be better paying jobs. I want a skilled workforce and give our students that opportunity, not have to leave Carroll County if they desire, not to.
Thanks, David. Just an observation. A lot of times when I was growing up, the diploma was an end-all, whether it's a high school diploma or college diploma. Right now, it's just a benchmark on the way to a career and job opportunities. And I think it's important we think of it that way, and it's not an end in itself. Diane, if your comments, please.
I would say the one you wrapped up on was the one we started with. We want kids to stay and grow in Marysville and Union County. Certainly we have room for growth. It's a great place. It's not very far from Columbus. A lot of students have in their mind they're just going to drive to Columbus and go to college or pick up some jobs, and they tend to just move that way. We want to bring those opportunities to Union County for our community and try to get people to stay there and grow there. The other struggle we have, and I kind of mentioned it in that, is students, really they're going to go to school and finish their degree, and they project that they're going to finish a 2 or 4 year degree, and quite simply they are not. Less than 40% of those who give that as an option are actually doing that. So in our study, certainly if students leave with an accumulation of credits, they tend to finish. And so we want to do as much as we can to get them off on a good start and have them vested in making that finish.
Saves mom and dad some money too, doesn't it?
It does.
Jim, I'm going to turn this over. Before I do this, I taught at Chillicothe, the OU branch, and the Superintendent Leadership Program. And one of the things I heard when I was teaching down there from principals in the area, can't find advanced math teachers, can't find physics, can't find foreign language. The dual enrollment opportunities are limited. And so it just resonated with me, these lack of opportunities, and not just in that particular part of the state where I happen to be teaching, but even in Northwest Ohio, when I see and visit a school where there's absolutely no student in PSEO, post-secondary education option, or no dual enrollments, no AP classes, and I'm saying we're missing the boat here. So I'm really excited about the Appalachian Collaborative, Jim, and I'd like to hear how you got the superintendents to make this, and I think I understand the primary focus for that collaboration.
Part of it, there has been, Battelle For Kids has been privileged to work with these districts now for 4 years in a collaborative. So we're building on that. I think you look at rural America, there's 50 million adults, there's 12 million kids, yet there's still a greater likelihood of higher poverty, less jobs, et cetera, than their counterparts in cities and suburban areas. And I think people begin to understand that unless we do something differently, that we can only do collectively. Sometimes when you ask yourself why you belong to a group, what is it that group can provide that I can't do individually? And in this case, it's a lot. It's providing access. I went to a meeting recently where people talked about, well, the distribution of our math teachers. And I thought, there's no distribution of math teachers in many local rural high schools. There's one. And how is it that we collectively share across these boundaries? And if I have somebody who's really good, how is it they can teach kids somewhere else? And to create these pathways that simply have remained isolated, and it can be no more. So I think people realize that, and I think the other thing is, it goes back to a t-shirt I saw in Texas a number of years ago. It said, if you're not the lead dog, the scenery never changes. And I think there's a sense among these people that say, do you not want to lead? And to lead, you have to take risks. But at the heart of all of this is one thing: student benefits. Student benefits. So someday when kids will look back, well, I may take a class here and there, and we're going to reduce the cost to those parents and those families and give them more opportunities and expect more of them.
Jim Mahoney, thank you. Having worked with Diane Mankins before, Dan, I'm going to start with you this time. And what do you, as you projected out, which I'm sure you have done, the problems, and what are your biggest obstacles to accomplishing this? Because Alex and Susan are going to be calling soon and saying, is this a success or not, and how are you going to know? What do you see as the biggest problems that's going to keep you from being successful in conveying this across the state?
Well, the biggest problem is a renovation project that's $1.5 million a month, having it done in time for school to start August 15th, but we're going to do it. Everything is lined up. I think, to be honest with you, we've been planning a while. Even we were hopeful that we would be successful, so we started planning in November. So it's just building out that curriculum and trying to move forward, certainly with great partnerships with Columbus State. We've already had several meetings, and things are pretty well aligned. My biggest worry, if you will be communicating it well to parents so that they clearly understand what early college and STEM and this school of choice is, and actually being able to pull off the project, the renovation itself.
Is there anything you're asking from Susan or department that we could assist in that process?
Well, you know, everyone would like to say, we'd like an extension, right? We'd like an extension. But for me, to be real honest, we still want to open August 15th, so that part doesn't really matter. But I will tell you that my peers are interested in an extension. Yes. How's that?
Yes, I can talk to that.
All right. Well, before we talk about that, David, why don't you talk about problems or things that you think are going to, your obstacles you're going to face as you move forward? Because ultimately, when this was conceived in the governor's office and we talked about it, it was not conceived as a one-time deal applied to particular schools or school districts that received it this year and for the ensuing year. It was viewed as a way to, in a longitudinal way, change the way that we deal with schools and learning and structure and try to provide motivation for those change. So I need these 24 collaborations, these 24 projects representing well over 100,000, 150,000 kids, probably closer to 250,000 kids, to be successful, so I can go back to the legislature and say, this worked for these reasons, here's some things we can improve, but we need to move forward. But to get to you, David, what are the things, problems, issues you see as you move forward in your project?
Well, so some of the things that will not be a problem is you know, project lead the way, implementing the educational components of this grant. Some of the challenges, though, putting in a fueling station, looking at who are we partnering with, you know, the whole bidding system as far as we are going to construct a new facility. And so there's, you know, there's the bidding process, and who's going to do what, and a project manager, and we're ironing some of those things out. But our biggest challenge, I think, right now is with who are we going to partner with the fueling station. Do we, we've been trying to think, you know, is that something where we may want to form a COG, a Council of Governments? And so those are some of the, probably tough questions that we have, that we're under strict time constraints to have this earmarked by the end of the fiscal year. And so those are some of our, I think the educational components, as I stated, and getting the curriculum and getting the training, we can do that. That's not the issue. But some of the structural, physical challenges will be more difficult to make sure we hit that timeline, and we also meet all the, you know, the law regarding the bidding processes.
Thanks, David. Jim, as I look at your project, 27 entities and keeping everybody on board and moving forward, but what do you see as your biggest obstacles? Is that it, or are there other problems that...
Well, in addition to ego, money, and turf, after those of three, then of course doing a project across multiple counties, but honestly, it's reaching down to the community. It's a place where I grew up, where we change the cultural aspirations and expectations for kids, because school is not going to be the way it used to be, so that they clearly understand that these changes are, we're planting seeds that and shade trees that many of them may not see the shade, and it's going to be different for their kids, but it's to ensure their future is better. So there's a whole cultural piece of engagement in the community.
Does that mean if the kids aren't going to see those shade trees, that mean you and I aren't either, Jim?
They will, we won't.
All right, I think we're ready to take, maybe if anyone has questions that they would like to present, and I don't know the protocol, how you're going to handle that, but there's microphones up there. Pete, you got a question?
I do. Dick, it's always great to see you. I'm Pete McRae. I have a national architectural practice, and I teach a seminar on the collaborative design process to graduate architecture students at Ohio State. But more importantly, I had the privilege 2 years ago to serve on the Business Advisory Committee for the state's 5-year evaluation of their curriculum standards. My firm has had a lot of experience designing career and tech centers, and so we came to the table with a vehement advocacy of both the problem-based learning scenario for the changing the way that information is delivered. Also, we made the observation that in this day and age, we thought a teacher's role was not to teach information anymore. That's available to everybody unilaterally, via the internet, but that, focus on things like collaboration and problem-based learning, et cetera. So I know that problem-based learning has been, embedded in career tech education for as long as it's been around, but do you guys see a change to the way that the core educational subject matter is now being taught from a team basis instead of the traditional siloed method of learning?
Dan, why don't you start with that?
You knew I was dying, right? Well, certainly the new Ohio learning standards call for that anyways. And I would make the argument that where I came from, we've been doing that for years. So starting with a problem in mind and moving forward and designing learning where the teacher is the facilitator and the student then is learning from them, and more of a coaching model is the right way to go. We are making that transition. Again, it's not the way some of us were taught as educators, or we received our education, and that change is hard. But it's right-minded, it's definitely embedded in STEM and many of the things that we're doing as well. So I would say I definitely see that shift.
David, Jim, anything you'd like to add?
No, I agree, totally.
Okay, good. Other questions?
Good afternoon. My name is Shirley Billings. I am a former school superintendent, and I want to first commend CMC for bringing this forum before us. This has been extremely enlightening. Thank you all for your very passionate presentations. Now, I heard a lot about school innovation, and I think that I tried listening very, very carefully to see if I heard anybody suggest that innovation might emanate from places other than the school personnel, particularly teachers and other educators. So my question to the panel is this: to what extent have you given consideration to student innovation? To what extent have you taken into account some of the facts that Superintendent Rice put before us at the outset of his remarks, which indicated that he lived in a world that was devoid of much of the technology we have today, considering many of our students live in a world that has seen nothing else but the technologies that we have today. So having said that, what new knowledge, if any, are students generating? Are you opening that avenue for them?
We had students involved in our visitations and parents from the beginning. We have students that will serve on the design team as we move forward. And we also did extensive surveying of students in the middle school and intermediate school about interests and trying to drive our pathways to reflect areas they were interested in. We had a lengthy debate on, well, does a fifth grader really know, and how do you know? But we talked about, interests and trends and things you like to do and lean towards doing and designed with that in mind.
And I think with our project as well, we're going to have students that will be involved in making decisions with the nature trails, with the kiosks. We want the students out of the seats and actually in a learning, problem-solving learning environment. So as we proceed through this grant, I see a real, I see a real need for student involvement that will be definitely explored and captured through this process. But as far as the students go in this, we're going to have different opportunities for them, and they're also going to help in the development of this per se 21st century farm learning lab, because they're the ones going to be doing a lot of the work.
One other thing real quick, and thanks for your question, Shirley. One of our benchmarks is a student engagement survey that we regularly use. Because too often we do things with students in mind, but we do things to them and rather with them. Exactly. And as we begin thinking about all of these increased technologies, it gets flipped because they become the teachers in many of it.
Absolutely. Thank you. Next question.
Yes, my name is John McKnight, and I work for Rife's Auto Body in the collision repair field. I love these education-based forums because it gives me a chance to keep pounding my point home here, which is that, David, you mentioned trying to capture students in high school that want to go immediately into the workforce, to move them into the fields there that are pertinent in your area. How does the collision repair industry get on the map for that? How do we capture people? Rife's has 2 locations in Columbus, and we were looking to open a 3rd one in Union County. The last couple of years we've been trying to do that, and one of the deciding factors in us not having gone forward with that is there are not enough good people for us to hire. We need to find a way to capture people and get them into this industry. So how can an industry outside of the educational system make that happen?
I'm really interested in your description of the skills that those youngsters would need to move from high school right into jobs, and I think that's a discussion that we're having at the Department of Ed right now. I suspect it's happening here also. David, do you have a comment?
What we're doing too, as far as part of this curriculum, is going to involve soft skills, and teaching students how to prepare for a successful interview, how to dress, the whole concept and notion with no drug policy and those types of things. So that will be addressed in the curriculum, but I would be more than glad afterwards to have a discussion to see how those kinds of things fit, because we're building our team every day. And, we started out, I think we're up to 20, total of 22, 23 members on our team. And so those are some of the things that we're looking at, how to get them. And we have some commitments from some industries that will definitely take our students in and, and help as far as a co-op, collaborative, type of partnership.
One other I want to mention is that too often we don't connect to the business world and where the jobs are. I was talking to some of our career tech schools because I needed 4,000 or 5,000 welders in East Central Ohio, and I asked them, how soon can you do it? They said, well, in about 30 months I can give you 25. And I said, it just doesn't work that way. We can't do that anymore. We need to be thinking in real world terms with our businesses, and I think that point is there. And Diane, I assume you're going to give him a call and talk to him.
I was going to say, just meet me afterwards, Union County.
Yes, Todd Tooney. I am really intrigued by the statement you made earlier regarding the fact that 40% of the applicants did not meet the prerequisite for sustainability. And we haven't had a chance to really hear very much about how your particular proposals spoke to sustainability for your program. So if you could just kind of share with us how you see this continuing to be a part of the fabric of your work, I appreciate it.
There's a commitment to maintain it for 5 years without additional funding if the purpose was not to save money, because we had some proposals that actually were designed to reduce the cost of the school district. But David, why don't we start with you?
A few ways sustainability is converting our bus fleet to compressed natural gas, much cheaper to run a fleet on the compressed natural gas. So the savings from that will be directed back into the classroom. A lot with our educational piece, train-the-trainer type of concept, where we'll have lead teachers being trained and then coming back and bringing that knowledge back to their grade levels or across grade levels to the building level. So we're not out, sending, groups and paying for the same type of, professional development that our coaches are getting. So those are the two big. One is the transportation, and also, I guess I should add, is the fuel station, and being able to look from an entrepreneurship type of eyes of how can we benefit and bring more money, because that's thinking outside the box a lot for public schools. A lot of times public entities don't think about, well, how are we going to, or how, can we bring additional revenue in, like the private sector? Well, we're going to explore a lot of different avenues with that. So that was also built into the grant as far as the sustainability piece.
Quickly, Diane.
You just caught me off guard. We are always feels like I'm back in the war room, doesn't it? At Marysville, one of the things we're taking advantage of is the shared resources with Columbus State and with High Point. So we will be using different instructional online courses. We're going to work with Columbus State to develop different courses that our students need so that it's not the expense of another educator. And it's all shifted resources from our high school currently, so that staff will come down from the high school into the early college mode. So we'll be paying attention pretty closely to staff. As well, we entered into long-standing agreements, 5-year license, 6 years license for things, as opposed to doing a short and try to renew all the time.
Jim.
I'll just give you one very quickly. You can imagine we're going to leverage the consortia to its fullest. With this many school districts that collectively doing it, there's an array of things, and then putting the technology infrastructure in place, and then the commitment to continue all of those pieces. So they're simply going to have a whole host of things that individually they could not have done, but they now can leverage as a consortia.
I do want to mention that we did have one proposal, I think Susan Alex, that was approved that consolidated 3 school buildings into one. So you had a lot of, these were not cookie cutter proposals. They were all over the board about all different sorts of ideas. Question?
Hi, I'm Bill Lafayette, CMC trustee. I was thrilled to hear the comments about engagement with industry, because that is so critically important. I'm just wondering, from your side, how did you do that? How did you engage industry? And is the cooperation from industry as great as you need it to be?
Why don't you start?
In putting together the proposal, the local chambers were absolutely critical. It also was because of this area of the woods, like David had mentioned, the Utica Marcellus shale play, and some of those companies, because that's absolutely critical, and that's an ongoing benchmark, because again, I'm going to come back to the antecedent, prepare students for what? And the best way to do that is to have those ongoing dialogue of those people whom hire these kids and the kinds of skills they need to be hired.
For me, only being in the district such a short time, I learned how to be very resilient and keep knocking and calling until someone would talk to me, or someone knew someone to connect me with the other someone who I really should be talking to. And I will tell you, Honda has been a fantastic partner. Matter of fact, they're in conversations about earmarking a staff person to work on initiatives like this, not just for Marysville, but for schools at large. Columbus State, I think Dr. Harrison will tell you the same thing. I'm really good about sending emails and calling back and saying, don't you have time to meet with me? I have something great to offer. So being persistent. Chamber is highly engaged in Union County. They are also working on purchasing a mobile manufacturing trailer, which would service all intermediate and middle schools in Union County to kind of be our kickoff and see what manufacturing is. It's not, smokestacks anymore. So once they hear what you have to say, it's just, for me, it was difficult to learn who to go to.
A lot of the same responses, but for us, it really started with monthly meetings with Chesapeake, and we met with them for probably close to a year, and within that meeting was OG, Rhonda Rita, the executive director, and it just kind of branched out from there. And then we just, a lot of networking, Mr. Robinson, not a lot of knocking on the doors, calling, bugging people on the phone, us going door to door to some businesses, but it was persistence and basically networking that just kept growing and growing and growing, and taking advantage of contacts instead of just putting that card in your pocket and throwing it away or for losing it, actually really taking that card and doing something with it, because if that person can't help you, they may probably know someone that can, and it's just it's a great effect.
We really appreciate the opportunity to be here because we obviously like to talk about this. We'd maybe like to come back and talk about the results about 2 years from now, because that's really where the rubber meets the road, so to speak, and I'm really enthusiastically looking forward to that. But behalf of the governor, the Department of Education, the Straight A Board, and myself, we just appreciate the opportunity to come in today. Thank you.
And I can say as the chair of our board, we'd have you back. We'd have you back. I hope you enjoyed today's forum. Remember that you can see it again on Columbus TV3, on the Ohio channel, on WOSU, and share it on YouTube through the CMC website. We encourage you to continue the conversation in our lobby over coffee and cookies. We'd also like to invite you to come back to CMC frequently. Before you leave, once more, let's thank our sponsors, Columbus State Community College, Columbus State Community College Foundation, and the Columbus Partnership. I'd also like to really thank our speakers. We really appreciate your expertise, your enthusiasm, and your excitement for our children. So thank you for the innovative leadership that you're providing, and thank you, Superintendent Ross. Thank you for being here. We look forward to seeing you again soon.